Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where you bring the stack of sources, and we give you that conceptual shortcut. The mission is always the same. We want to deliver those essential nuggets of knowledge that make you instantly well-informed. Today, we're doing a really critical deep dive. We're looking at a document called Hormones and Sexual Health Nexus. And specifically, we're focusing on that core section, the one that really lays it all out. Hormones and sexual health, how they're connected.
That's exactly right. And for you, the learner, our goal today is to synthesize what the source says about this relationship. It doesn't just, suggest a link. It calls it a nexus.
For nexus, yeah.
Which implies this really strong central connection point. So our mission is to jump right past the what and get straight to the how, the biological mechanics of how it all works.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that word nexus, that's a powerful choice. It signals this isn't just some casual overlap. It's a system where, the state of one thing fundamentally dictates the state of the other. We're going from premise to data.
And what's fascinating here is that the author just bypasses that whole debate and dives straight into the mechanics. So to understand the how, we first have to ground ourselves in what the source calls the central command structure.
Okay.
The hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, or the HPG axis for short.
The HPG axis.
This is the master regulator. It's a continuous feedback loop that keeps hormonal production, calibrated to what the body actually needs.
So it's like a central communication highway.
Right.
And the main traffic on this highway, at least for sexual health, is testosterone and estrogen, right?
Right.
And the source is clear. These aren't just sex hormones for making babies. They're critical signaling molecules for entire bodily systems.
Absolutely. The source spells out that their job goes way beyond just fertility. Let's start with testosterone.
Sure.
It's often mistakenly just seen as a male health thing. But the source emphasizes its role in both sexes.
In both. Okay.
As a major driver of libido, energy, and even mood, the connection is direct. Low circulating testosterone often means an immediate drop in sexual desire and general vitality.
And what's interesting there is how precise it is. The source says it's not just more hormone is better.
No, not at all.
It talks about the sensitivity of receptor sites. So you could have normal testosterone levels, but if the receptors in your brain or tissues aren't listening, then your functional health still suffers.
That brings up a concept the source highlights as key, which is functional availability. And it's the same with estrogen.
Right.
It's widely known for its role in female fertility, of course, but its connection to sexual health is vital for tissue integrity. Estrogen receptors they're everywhere in vaginal and vulval tissues.
So the source is saying that the right estrogen levels are what keep those tissues elastic and maintain blood flow and lubrication.
Precisely.
So if that hormonal environment shifts, the physical manifestation, the actual structure and function of the tissues, it changes almost instantly. That's where the nexus becomes literal. A drop in estrogen after menopause, for instance, isn't just a change in reproductive status. It's a change in the physical architecture that affects comfort and function.
You've got it. And the second major area the source analyzes for the how is the crucial link between hormones and vascular health.
Vascular health, blood flow.
This is a profound mechanism. Sexual function, especially arousal and erection, is fundamentally a vascular event. It needs rapid, directed blood flow.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. So how do hormones regulate that? How do they direct blood flow to those specific areas? It's not just a pump, is it?
It's a chemical one. The source details the pivotal role of testosterone and estrogen in regulating nitric oxide production, NO.
Nitric oxide.
It's a potent vasodilator. It basically tells the smooth muscles in the blood vessel walls to relax, which lets blood rush in. Testosterone directly influences the enzymes that make NO.
Wow.
So the hormonal environment is directly controlling the body's ability to get that vascular response needed for function.
That makes the connection so much more robust than just libido. We're literally talking about the molecular machinery that enables the physical act itself. So if your hormonal output is compromised, your vascular signaling is compromised. It doesn't matter how much psychological desire you have, it's a non-negotiable physical link.
And the source also connects estrogen to endothelial health. That's the health of the inner lining of your blood vessels.
Okay.
You often hear estrogen is cardioprotective, right? Well, that protection extends directly to the smaller, more sensitive vasculature that sexual function relies on.
So the same hormones protecting your heart are also maintaining your essential sexual functionality. That's a huge insight for the learner.
It is.
If there's a problem with sexual function that seems to be vascular, The author is telling us, you have to look upstream. Look at the hormonal regulation that governs that entire system.
Exactly. You're not just treating a local issue, you might be looking at a systemic hormonal deficit.
Which really gets to that bigger picture.
It does. It emphasizes that sexual health isn't isolated. It's an accurate and often an early barometer of your overall cardiovascular and endocrine health. The mechanisms are fundamental.
Okay, let's widen the lens a bit, because the source material doesn't just stop with the sex hormones. It brings in what it calls crosstalk.
The crosstalk, yeah.
How other hormones modulate this whole primary system.
Yeah.
This is where that word nexus really earns its weight.
Absolutely. The author spends a good amount of time on thyroid hormones and stress hormones like cortisol.
Cortisol.
The hormonal system is a hierarchy. And if the higher levels are disrupted, say by chronic stress pumping out cortisol, it essentially steals resources from the sexual health system.
That's fascinating. So can you elaborate on that? How does stress specifically break this nexus, according to the source?
Well, cortisol is the body's emergency signal. The source points out that when cortisol is high for a long time, the body starts prioritizing survival over things like reproduction and, well, leisure.
Right, fight or flight.
And there's a direct biological trade-off. In some cases, the actual building blocks for making cortisol share pathways with the ones for making sex hormones. The body will literally divert precursor molecules to manage stress.
So it's a resource allocation problem?
A direct one, which means the production of testosterone and estrogen can actually drop.
So high cortisol isn't just a mental block. It's a chemical robber that physically reduces the raw materials the HPG axis has to work with.
That's the mechanism. And the thyroid connection is just as important. The source shows thyroid hormones as an accelerator for the entire metabolic system.
Like the gas pedal.
Kind of. If thyroid function is sluggish, hypothyroidism, it slows down the metabolism of sex hormones. It reduces the sensitivity of the target cells.
So even if you're producing enough estrogen or testosterone?
The body can't use it effectively if the thyroid isn't working right. The result, according to the source, is compromised function across the board. Libido, tissue health, energy levels, all of it.
So we've really gone from the idea of a nexus to the three concrete pillars that hold it up. First, the HPG axis controlling production. Second, the molecular link through nitric oxide regulating vascular function. And third, that systemic modulation from crosstalk hormones like cortisol and thyroid. That is the true distillation of the how.
And that systemic perspective is the main takeaway. The author wants us to adopt a holistic diagnostic approach.
So if a learner's reading about managing sexual health, they need to know that just, say, taking a hormone might not work.
It might fail, right. If you don't also address the chronic stress raising your cortisol or a potential thyroid deficiency, the nexus is a multi-lane highway, not a single road.
I think the biggest surprise for me in this deep dive is just how non-negotiable this dependence is. It's not a suggestion. It's the fundamental design.
It really is.
For you, the learner, understanding this mechanism lets you evaluate health claims and treatment strategies with a much more critical and educated eye.
Absolutely. The source gives you the mandatory lens. It gives you a framework for critical thinking by teaching you to ask, is this just treating the downstream symptom, the function, or is it addressing the upstream regulator, the hormone?
Because the nexus demands you look at both.
At the same time, yes.
Let's touch on the psychological aspect, because the source does weave that in. We focused on the biology, but sexual health includes psychological readiness, desire. How does the author tie the hormones to this mental state?
Through neurotransmitters. The hormones act as modulators for the mood and reward centers in the brain. The source details how healthy testosterone and estrogen levels support dopamine and serotonin regulation.
Okay, so the brain chemistry itself.
Exactly. When those primary sex hormones are balanced, the brain's environment is more conducive to desire and connection. When they dip, the psychological driver is often the first thing to go.
Which then starts a negative feedback loop.
It can, yes.
That's brilliant. So the hormones are physically preparing the tissues and chemically preparing the mind at the same time. That's the absolute epitome of a nexus. Total integration.
Indeed. And the source has some compelling examples near the end. It shows how temporary hormonal suppression used in some medical treatments can cause these rapid, profound, but reversible declines in vascular function and drive.
Wow. Which just proves how swift and direct that dependency is.
This is a very clear demonstration.
Okay, so to synthesize this whole deep dive, we started by acknowledging the source's powerful claim. Hormones and sexual health form a nexus. We've now pulled out the core content that defines how that connection works. through the HPG axis, through nitric oxide and vascular regulation, and through that systemic modulation by cortisol and the thyroid. The core takeaway is that you have to view this as one integrated dynamic system.
And the final SWOT analysis for you, the learner, is that this view is vital. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it means recognizing sexual health as a core metabolic function, tightly governed by this sensitive chemical environment. The knowledge here is that any wellness strategy has to adopt this holistic, nexus-based approach to have a real chance of success.
We've really established the profound and detailed nature of this connection. So here's a final provocative thought for you to consider, building on the mechanisms we've just discussed. If the hormonal regulation of nitric oxide is so key to vascular function and sexual health, and we know vascular function is critical everywhere in the body, what other unexpected non-sexual health outcomes, maybe something like cognitive decline or even the body's ability to heal wounds, might also be subtly and fundamentally dependent on keeping that HPG axis function optimal? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope this has given you that clear, detailed, and systemic understanding you need to approach this complex topic. We'll see you next time as we continue our learning journey.